Morning, Kellyanne.
In the sun.
In the sun. Can we get your reaction? If Mueller is a hoax, if Mueller is a hoax,
Healthcare. The president is always for protecting pre-existing conditions, and in fact, his budget proposal. Now that you want to quote move on, maybe you'll read our budget. Our budget proposal includes protecting individuals with pre-existing condition because it's tied to the Graham-Cassidy-Heller-Johnson bill. And that would also direct states to commit about 10% of their funding to market-based health care grants. So this president was never Congressman Trump or Senator Trump voting to do away with pre-existing conditions. He's always been very firm on protecting people with pre-existing conditions. He also knows that many people in this country, I think this week is the 9th anniversary of Obamacare, and here we are 9 years later, we have close to 28 to 30 million Americans with no health coverage. So it wasn't the magical elixir for many Americans, and I think this president's policies, whether it's the short-term limited duration plans or the associated health plans, done a lot of market-based, patient-centric. He's taken many actions that will help people to get benefits in the interim. But this remains a very complex issue. We're not going to allow the hard left, the people who you give all the airtime and the ink for some reason in the Congress to have their way on Medicare for all. That we're not going to lose the fight on government-run healthcare, which treats us all the same, one-size-fits-all healthcare for everybody. That's not America. That's one of the most intimate aspects of your life. And this president believes that patients should be better protected and have more choices, higher quality, and they don't now.
So going back to Mueller, if Mueller is a hoax, are you all recommending dropping charges against the 24 Russians?
Well, the president said that the investigation was a hoax and a witch hunt because there was no collusion, and that's exactly what Director Mueller said. There is no collusion, no obstructive conduct, no further indictments. Nobody named Brian Karem or Trump indicted, and I think it's really time for you to admit that you've wasted a lot of time and ink and angst for people who deserve better for a couple of years. I gave you an answer. I'll do it again. Let me do it again. Let me do it again. It was a witch hunt against the president and his campaign, which I ran into the successful part of the election, because the idea that any of us and me as the campaign manager would cheat, steal, lie, cut corners, talk to Russians was an insult from the beginning. And for everybody who peddled it, you really should just look inside a little bit.
Indicted and charged, do you support that part of it? Those that were convicted and the 24 Russians that were charged.
So
the president.
The president was always talking about witch hunt in terms of him, that you're going after him. There was no collusion in his campaign. Was there or was there not collusion?
Well, you all said
no, answer me. Was there or was not there?
Yeah.
Well, and Mueller answered you. No collusion.
On healthcare, the Democrats flipped the House in 2018 behind the momentum of this idea of trying to preserve the current healthcare system. Are you worried at all, looking ahead to 2020, that maybe this isn't the fight that Republicans in the White House need back?
Got to fight Medicare for all and socialism. As Larry Kudlow says, socialism's on trial. So is government-run health care. So is the Green New Deal, which of course the Senate will vote on, to put everybody on the record. Are you going to get past a soundbite and something that sounds so great and gets you all this airtime and ink for absolutely no reason? Or are these responsible senators who have represented these states for a very long time actually going to say to their constituents, gee, I think it's a great idea? I doubt it. And so, but in healthcare, we've got to help the millions of Americans who don't have health coverage, who were told you can keep your doctor, you can keep your plan, healthcare for everyone. That's a big lie. That was a big lie wrapped up in a complex conundrum that has left so many Americans without it. So let me repeat, the short-term limited duration plans by this president, the associated health plans, the drug pricing, the record number of generics that were approved, all the great bold moves he's making on, for example, ending HIV by 2030, which should be a tremendously bipartisan issue, the opioid legislation passed with every Democratic vote, the stuff that Secretary Azar is doing, that Administrator Verma of Medicare and Medicaid that I met with yesterday is doing. It's a lot of great moves that we're trying to make to mitigate the damage that Obamacare has done for many Americans. We have to make sure that pre-existing conditions are protected, but this president's budget does that, and the bill that he supports does that. And he supports that. But remember, the taxing authority by Congress that led to the legitimate reason for Obamacare, being upheld, is gone. We now have a mandate without a penalty. And that is, I think, very much what the court, among other things, will be considering.
Do you know what made the DOJ change the opinion? Do you know, Kellyanne?
The president, the Department of Justice is part of the executive branch, and the president has faith in his Department of Justice to do the right thing. And we're watching litigation. We're not going to. We don't predict the outcomes of litigation like that. We'll see what happens. People presume it will get all the way to Supreme Court. People who watch. I'm a fully recovered attorney. Very happy about that. The president is watching Texas versus Azar, and you see what his Department of Justice just came out and said. And of course, you know, it's not just Texas versus Azar in our Department of Justice. You've got about 20 state attorneys general who are on that side of the issue as well.
I don't understand the way you turn this message around on health care. You know, this last election, a lot of voters voted on that issue, and Republicans...
Well, a lot of them also voted on collusion, and they voted on Russia, and they voted on the fact that he was not no, it's not okay. It is not okay that you cast him as an illegitimate or undemocratically elected president. Oh, right, we're moving on again, right, to healthcare. Well, welcome to healthcare. I've been talking about it for about 25 years. Welcome to healthcare. All during the campaign, I talked to you about the fact that United Healthcare had left the exchanges. Aetna was pulling out. We've stabilized the exchanges.
Well, but you have a message for the voters?
Yes, we have a lot of messages. I have many messages for the voters. And if you go out there and lie, any of you, that he's against protecting pre-existing conditions or this is a major change, go and give the statistics. We have them if you need help. We can show you the 28 million people. He's for protecting pre-existing conditions, always has been. Excuse me?
When he goes to the policy lunch today,
Talk about what's on the docket. I mean, it'd be nice if some Democratic senators and some Democratic House members would make good on their gauzy, opaque promises back home to work with the White House and work in a bipartisan fashion on drug pricing, on infrastructure. Where are they? Now they're going to investigate more. What are they investigating? We had the full and fair and thorough investigation, $25 million plus of taxpayer dollars, 500 witnesses, over 1 million documents. The Mueller investigation is the gold standard. And if the investigators on Capitol Hill want to continue, it will be seen as hyper-partisan and politicized. The Mueller investigation went beyond conspiracy and collusion by the campaign. Found no collusion. Brian, get used to saying it, please, all of you.
Well,
found all that. Well, I saw the no collusion. You better start being able to form those words in your throat and get them out of your mouth. To be fair, start typing them. And the fact is that the president will talk about all the things we could be working on together. He'll talk about, he got another 9th Circuit judge approved yesterday. I mean, the record on judges is amazing. And he's going to a policy lunch for that reason, because he will continue to fight on policy. Look, the 2020 crowd, that's somebody else's problem, but I have no idea why we can't get people to come together on the big issues that are vexing this country. It makes no sense to me. Drug pricing, infrastructure. You're saying compromise. I mean, you have to come to the table and let's have a conversation first. Where are they? And this president is open to meeting with them. And look, we do hear from a number of more moderate Democrats, particularly some of those freshmen whose names you don't know because you cover the ones who are in safe districts and say crazy things. And thanks for doing that, by the way. We think it's very helpful to our cause to keep capitalism over socialism and not have government one-size-fits-all health care for everybody in this nation, which would be problematic, and Green New Deals, which are horrible. The fact is that you've got a lot of these moderate Democrats, including ones who just won Trump-carried districts, who are very frustrated that they can't get anybody in their leadership to talk about policy, to drop bills that are meaningful, to get drug pricing. We're gonna do that anyway. Our FDA Commissioner Scott Gottlieb, Secretary Azar, they've been doing amazing jobs, approving a record number of generics in this last year, and getting that cost down on many, many different drugs, particularly the generics, which is what most people use. And we'll just continue to do what we're doing. We're working on infrastructure here. We're working on healthcare. We're working on so many things. Trade, obviously, with or without the Democrats. He's the president of the entire country. We have to, quote, move forward on all of this. But as you can tell, we've been working on policy here for a while.
Kellyanne, I have a question. Kellyanne, does the president want a special counsel, or does he want the Department of Justice to investigate what he considers to be?
We'll let that process play out. I've seen many people, including Senator Graham, say that he thinks the investigators should be investigated. I was the first person yesterday, I think, to call for Adam Schiff to step aside, because it doesn't seem like he could do a fair job. How can we do that? I can pull clips with my eyes closed of him saying evidence in plain sight of collusion. He has seen evidence of collusion, and all of you just running with it because, after all, he said it. And he said it not under oath. Let's put him under oath and ask him where this evidence is. I'd like to say it.
But what about a
Where is
special
it?
counsel? Is that really the way to go?
No, you've done nothing but try to demean and deride and destroy and dehumanize a lot of us here. But
Point to us how we do
here
that.
we are.
Just ask questions.
Here we are. You know that. No, you don't just ask questions. You run with crazy theories. Who gave Julie Swetnick a platform through Michael Avenatti to be the third Kavanaugh accuser? You have treated Kavanaugh, the Covington kids, and collusion, conspiracy, and coordination all the same. Let's just run with it, sight unseen. So that's my comment on him.
About the special
the
counsel?
expected House vote today on the president's border emergency. How are you guys feeling?
You mean
about
trying to
that vote?
override his veto?
Yes.
Yes. So you probably also saw that DOD approved the funding for the drug diversion, right? That's another $1 billion for the president's wall, steel slap barrier. Obviously, that's a great use of money, since I know firsthand that the drugs are coming over the border and into our communities. So the Democrats will vote, as you know, that there's not enough votes to override the president's veto ultimately in the House and Senate, and the president will continue with his national emergency declaration. There's no question. You saw all the statistics even this week, last week. We have a crisis at the border, Francesca. I don't know why people keep denying it. They see people pouring over. You know the drugs are pouring over. Actually, we've had a number of briefings recently with the president and the cabinet and others, senators, about less than 2 weeks ago, showing all the drugs that are coming through between the ports of entry, outside of the ports of entry. About 388 pounds or 403 pounds of fentanyl alone, I believe, that and it's way up. And this is not just at the ports of entry. We have historic record amounts being seized at the ports of entry by our brave men and women of Border Patrol, but this is between. And if you want to see it, if we're going to move on from collusion, sure, yes, but they're already on the White House. They're on my Twitter feed. They're on the White House. You know what you're busy covering. You all know what you're busy covering. We see it. We know it. But if you really want to help people, congratulations. I'm great. I think that's wonderful.
On the border, since it is facing legal contest, the National Emergency Declaration, clearly they've reallocated the $1 billion. How much more can you do in the face of these legal contests?
So we've got the money from the House and Senate, as you know, 1.375. This is an extra $1 billion. I know Treasury is looking at some of the forfeiture money. And then we get to the MILCON money, the military construction money. We're not there yet. But this president is very happy that that DOD drug diversion money will be available. I think I read it's going to be responsible for a little bit more than 50 miles of 18, I think it was 18 feet high barriers is what I was briefed on this morning. So again, it's progress, because anybody who denies there's a crisis just isn't paying attention.
Kellyanne, is there any reaction from the White House to Democrats' request to the Attorney General to turn over the Mueller report in a week? And also, do you expect the White House to be briefed on the contents before it is fully released, if it's fully released?
You've heard the president in his own words, and the rest of us, but the president most authoritatively yesterday said, okay, let the Mueller report come out. But you know what the law commands in that regard. It's up to the Attorney General, Bill Barr, and it's within the confines of the law. In other words, you have to comply with the law. I would expect, as a fully recovered attorney, there would be some redactions, or we're protecting sources and methods to their there. But it is sort of amusing to me, who's just endlessly amused these days, these weeks, that's endlessly amusing to me that the same people are saying, how in the world did Bill Barr take just 2 days to come out with a 4-page memo based on a report that he read, the fruits of which are an investigation that went on for 22 months, and it was thorough, that somehow he should just be able to release the whole report right now. Why isn't he going fast enough? That just makes no sense. So stop picking and choosing what you think should be speedy and what you think should really take its time. The president he said yesterday he has no problem with the Mueller report coming out as it complies with the law, according to the Attorney General's discretion and authority, because, as he said, with the actual investigation into collusion, there was nothing to hide. There was nothing there. And we know that now. We know it from Director Mueller. And I do see some people now trying to besmirch the integrity of Director Mueller, Attorney General Barr. That is really rich. And I think it's just because people are very nervous. They spent so much time trying to undo the 2016 election results that they have no idea how to beat this guy in 2020.
Back on healthcare for a second. Back on healthcare for a second.
Didn't hire. Yeah.
Why is the president suddenly changing his tune?
that the president also let the investigation go unimpeded. And that was, read the documents from the Attorney General and the Deputy Attorney General, that no one at the Department of Justice ever felt that they couldn't do their job. Think about that. The only time we heard from Mr. Mueller is he had to respond to lots of people who, I guess some of whom now are being sued or worse, who went with the BuzzFeed article about what the president commanded Michael Cohen to do or not do. It's the only time I know of that Mr. Mueller had to come forward and actually make a statement. It was to bat down this nonsense. It's never sourced, never verified. Just let the lies fly as much as we can, as fast as we can.
Him a liar, didn't besmirch him?
Kellyanne, on healthcare, did the president, did the White House or the president have in advance knowledge that the DOJ would be taking this action? Did the president?
I know the answer, and I'm not saying it. Next.
Did the president give his
Because
blessing?
I'm not. Pardon? I guess we'd have to have an investigation to see, wouldn't we? You guys are you're very in favor of lengthy investigations and screaming chyrons with no evidence. So let's at least see if the investigators will be investigated. Let's see what really happened during the Obama administration. Are we going to pretend that there were not people at the top echelons at the DOJ and the FBI who weren't sitting on the scales of justice? Because they were, and you already know that. Page and Strzok and Orr, the phony dossier, which I tried to tell anchors at the time just to be called a liar, the phony dossier, the Steele dossier, for which some people won phony awards, Pulitzer Prizes now on Russia conspiracy collusion reporting. All we want is for true transparency, full transparency and accountability to take hold. All we want in this White House, all I want is an American citizen, let alone one that's been dragged through the mud by so many of you, along with my colleagues and our president and his family on this nonsense and his campaign on this complete nonsense. All we want is for the country to get the full story. So the full story, I think, would include who unmasked Mike Flynn, how did the Steele dossier start, why did it continue? Let's look at the FISA application warrants. I mean, Senator Marco Rubio was on a Sunday show even before the Barr memo came out saying he would like to know about the FISA applications. Why was that granted? Why was that granted? As opposed to what? As opposed to what? Excuse me, no, you tell me that those who were saying the president was a Russian asset or a Russian agent, how is that not tantamount to accusing him of committing treason, which is punishable by death? I mean, how is that not tantamount to that?
How is that true?
Did any of you, pardon me? I'll let the investigators see. He said maybe people committed treason. He said that, so we'll see.
Kellyanne, isn't it up to the president to release the FISA documents?
Pardon me?
Isn't it up to the president to release the FISA documents?
Well, maybe. I'm not sure is the answer. I'm sure it may be up to the executive branch. But there are a lot of shenanigans going on because people did not want him to be elected president. Remember the insurance policy and deriding the Trump voters as the smelly Walmart shoppers. I think I got these glasses at Walmart for $2. Got it. And I don't buy the expensive ones. I lose them too often. But they wanted an insurance policy that he wouldn't get elected. They were deriding him, deriding his voters. And then, of course, when he did get elected, much to their surprise and your collective surprise, what did they have to do? They ran around trying to undo an election, trying to really, I think, undo a democratically elected president who won fairly and squarely. And that is not the job of the FBI. That is not the job of the DOJ. And I've always felt really badly, Emerald, for the tens of thousands of men and women at the FBI and the DOJ who go to work every day and do an incredible job for this country with great integrity and great character. Those bad apples, few in number, but very powerful and very duplicitous. I think folks aren't done with them yet. I think they have a right to know.
On that point, going back to what Steve said,
11 o'clock call.
Is it in fact treasonous to oppose him?
Pardon me?
If I give you that point, but going back to what Steve asked, is it merely treasonous to oppose the president?
No,
because
of course not.
He called many people He called.
Of course not.
He called Mueller a liar.
That's not the definition of treason. See, I actually know the definitions of all these things.
I understand that.
I had
but
so
he's the
many.
one
I
who
had
made
so
the
many student loans
accusation.
for law school that I'm going to use that
I
law
know.
degree
God
here.
bless you.
I've actually studied that, read the Constitution. I think you should. I know what the
happy
word the definition of treason. I know the definition of collusion, which of course has no legal significance. I know the definition of conspiracy. And if we're going to play lawyers on TV or in print all
I'm
the
just
time,
asking
at
the
least get the
question.
basic
Who
information.
does he mean when he
All right,
says
we gotta
treason?
go.
He certainly doesn't mean people who just oppose him.
I heard you mention the Green New Deal earlier.